I discovered that I threw all my kids' stuff onto the lawn. Then all the neighbors ran and stole this stuff. I'm talking laptops, clothing, you name it. Well, my kid's really mad, but I'm trying to tell my kid it was just the April Fool's joke.
Oh man, I absolutely hate my mother. I know I'll get shamed by other people because they see her as struggling single mother, and she's done everything to give us our needs, but that's not true. She doesn't even have a job. Well, that's also not entirely true. Her main job is emotionally blackmailing father so he could give her money. To other people, she is the saintly, happy-go-lucky woman who only sees the brighter things in life. But, if they only knew. But I'm not here just to rant. I just want to ask for your opinion on what happened in the past few days. Honestly, I don't know if I went too far. The short version. I ratted on my mother when she threw out my stuff on the street as a, quote, April Fool's joke. My dad, they're divorced, canceled the month's child support check to replace it with the absolute minimum that the court mandated him to. My mom doesn't work, so she only relies on the big checks. Even my siblings told me I could have fixed the issue without going to my dad. I know it's a bit vague, so I'll give you some more details. I was tired. I had school and a part-time job, and when I came home I was surprised to find all of my belongings scattered across the house. Some of the stuff was even in the road. I noticed 2 kids were looking through the things and grabbed my console. I shouted to confront the children as they, "What are you doing?" They looked at me, put the console in their bag, and jetted. I shouted after them again and started to take a chase, but there were cars passing by, so I just made the choice to just stay, pick all my things up. I really hope they didn't steal anything else. Then I heard some giggling, and when I glanced at the direction, I saw my little sister, Annie, hiding behind the front door. So I ran after her, and when I caught her, I asked about my scattered stuff and if she knew about it. She shrugs, just tells me that it's Mom's surprise for me. I was so confused. What kind of messed up surprise is this? Is this a joke? I'm certainly not laughing. Then I heard my mother cackling from upstairs, and I ran up to my bedroom. I found my mom near the window with my laptop in her hand. Man, I caught her in the act. I asked her what's going on, and she said, "Oops," and then threw my laptop out the window. My eyes were wide open, and I was heating up. I looked at my mother, and she was just laughing, and she pointed at me and made fun of how shocked I was. Was this the point? I asked her if it was really my laptop. She wouldn't go that far, right? But no. She confirmed that it was, but told me not to worry. I stopped listening to her and just ran outside the house. I looked at my laptop, or what was left of it. There were pieces all over the street. I saw one piece with the band sticker that I put on my laptop myself. I don't get angry often, but I was mad. So many important documents were in there, and I'm not sure if I can retrieve them. I was shaking, and with all the anger and frustration I was feeling, I just picked up the biggest pieces of my laptop that I could find and threw it as far as I could. My mom finally came down and asked me what I was doing. I was bewildered. She's the one asking me that? So I bounced the question back. April Fools. April Fools? She revealed a party popper and popped it. I was definitely not amused, so I just glared at her, and she urged me to laugh it off since it's obviously funny. Is she actually serious? I confronted her that it was a sick joke, and she should not destroy my things just because. She sighed as if I'm the one in the wrong, and she clarified that we're going shopping, and she'll be replacing all of the stuff. Oh my gosh, I thought I was going crazy. I told her that my laptop is very important, and it's not just something that she can easily replace. My other things are stolen too, and what about important documents? I kept trying to explain to her, and I just got even more riled up the more I realized how much of a hassle this is going to be. She stayed silent, and once I got over my rant, she just asked, "What's your problem?" She told me she just wanted to give me a big surprise. Well, I'm not in the mood to play and tolerate whatever she's on right now, so I walked away and thanked her for the dumbest idea ever. Maybe she did mean it because she started crying on the road. She was even threatening cars passing by and telling them to drive through another road. When I got to the bedroom, I locked my door and dropped on my bed. Thank goodness she's not a monster physically, I guess. At least I still have my own bed. I woke up and it was already the next day. I didn't even realize I was asleep. I went downstairs and forgot for a moment what happened yesterday, until I saw my mother and her friends in the kitchen. Great. The group of Karens convened in our house, and I was also 100% sure they were talking about me, because one of them saw me and nudged the other to get them to hush. My mother broke away from them and just smiled. She greeted me and said, "Good morning." It felt like rage reactivated inside of me, so I told her it's not good thanks to her. Her friends all gasped loudly in unison, and I just rolled my eyes. I don't know what she told them, but I'm not the victim. What? Yeah, right, she's telling them she's the victim. I decided to just ignore them, so I just walked towards the door to get away. But before I took a step, one of them reprimanded me that it's not a proper way to act as a gentleman. Man, what do these Karens even know about gentlemen? I mumbled that she should tell her own husband, but it's louder than expected, so they all heard it. Another Karen stepped in and called me disrespectful, and my mother, being the angel that she is, stopped them and explained that I'm just in a bad mood and it was all their fault. She started sobbing while trying to get the words, so they all huddled around her again and she should just get a job as an actress. They all huddled around her, comforting her. The first friend looked at me and even said, "You're lucky your mother's very kind. If you were my son, I would have thrown your belongings outside my house and kicked you out." Well, the irony. It's whatever, so I just walked out. But as I opened the door, I wanted to rile them up a bit. I announced that I will be going to fix my laptop because my mother is unable to do anything but destroy everything. They all gasped, following my mom sobbing, and I admit that I said a lot of unnecessary things. But you know what? If she brought her friends to make me readily accept whatever she did, then I'm going to be a bit more stubborn. To me, it's all an orchestrated event. She didn't even apologize, not even once. When I stepped outside, I realized I wasn't able to pick up the pieces of my laptop. Now, the lawn and the streets look like nothing ever happened yesterday. My older brother, Carl, hanging out on the patio, stood up and handed me a small object. He said it was my hard drive, and thankfully it seems to be intact. I could only mumble a small, "Thank you." He must have also been confused coming home yesterday, and Carl said that Annie has clued him in on what happened. He also urged me to get it fixed, since it might still work. He also reminded me that today was our schedule for lunch with Dad. So I did. They told me they need more time as the files in the drive can be read or something, so I walked around and tried to distract myself. When I was almost at lunch, I went to my dad's. Carl was outside the gate waiting for me. He told me that I should not tell Dad what happened. I asked him why, and he reasoned that our parents are already in a bad place, that we should not make it even more complicated. Okay. Before I proceed with the story, let me explain a little bit more about our family dynamic. Our mother and dad are divorced. 3 of us stay with mom, and 2 of our other siblings live with dad. We occasionally have lunch over at Father's, and sometimes my other siblings come over here. It was a mutual decision. They just don't like each other anymore, but our parents still love us. So Dad, being wealthy, pays my mom 5 times more than what the court ordered him to. We live comfortably because of it, and my mother doesn't even work. The arrangement was already great, but sometimes Mom would just ask for more. When Dad tells her, go get a job, she would bring us into the conversation. Sometimes she would even bring Annie and make her and ask Dad for more money. My dad knows it's just manipulation, but he doesn't want to fight in front of us. I mean, I even only knew about this because I listened in on one of their conversations, rather a fight. So yeah, that's why Carl doesn't want me to say a word. There's already tension in the air between Mom and Dad. I told him that I wasn't planning to, but then again, even if I did, it's not really his decision. Inside, we hurried back to the dining area, where Annie and 2 of my other siblings who live in Dad are just waiting. Lunch proceeded as usual. We talked about our week, school, work. When Dad asked about our mom, Annie revealed that Mother had a surprise for me. Dad looked right at me and asked me what the surprise was. Carl also knowingly looking at me, and I knew what he wanted to say, but why lie, right? What was the worst that could happen? I told Dad how I arrived home and found all my things scattered outside the home. I also told him how some of the stuff was stolen and how she threw my laptop when, well, I caught her in the act. He exclaimed, "What?" and banged his fist on the table, which surprised us all, startled me. Carl chimed in that it was just an April Fool's prank. Dad told him that it was quite extreme for a prank. Finally, someone agrees. But Carl continued defending Mom and said that she was going to buy back everything that she broke. Dad didn't even respond anymore and just got at the table saying he needs to rest for a bit. Claire and June, my siblings who live with Dad, whispered to each other. Carl was glaring at me in sermon that I did not have to tell him. I reminded Carl that it was Annie who brought it up first, and it's not my issue. Annie, listening in, told us that she doesn't lie. That's my girl. Claire also spoke up and told us that Mom might be in trouble, and June said that Dad might stop giving money to her. We finished our lunch quietly after, and what they said might be true. The next day was when the real problems started. I was still planning on ignoring my mother, and when I climbed down the stairs, I heard my mother arguing over the phone. She was saying along the lines of, "The money that you sent is not enough. This is not what we agreed upon. Why are you doing this?" After a few minutes, the conversation turned to child custody. This time, I really panicked. She was saying things like, "No, you can't take the kids away from me just because of this one incident. No, that's too much." Carl, Annie, and I just stood there watching. After a few minutes, she starts screaming into the phone, and then the call ended. Noticing that I was in the vicinity, she glared at me, asking me if I wanted this and why I needed to punish her for her joke. She also told me that I'm allowed to be angry, but I did not have to include Dad on this. I wanted to respond, but she already turned her back and went to her room. Once again, Carl gave me a look that said, "I told you so." I called my dad and I asked him what happened. He advised me not to beat myself up for it. It turns out that he's been planning to reduce the money he sends to her for a long time already. It was just the last straw. So yeah, right now I'm in school and it's been bothering me. Carl texted that Mother has been stressing about this month's bills before he left the house. I'm still angry at my mom, but I didn't expect things to go like this. Am I the a-hole in this situation? Should I have stood down and just forgiven my mom? What she did was terrible, but she also did mean it as a joke. What's up, everybody? Mr. Reddito here. So today's story is crazy. I could not imagine somebody thinking that's a joke. The comment section was going nuts. How can OP ever be to blame for this situation? That was ridiculous. Well, there is multiple updates, so let's go ahead and jump into update number 1. Hey guys, if you're new to the channel, click that subscribe button underneath this video right now, as it does support me a lot and I appreciate it. Here's your update. Seems like the comments are divided. Before I give you the update, let me clarify some questions. Yes, this isn't the first time my mother's done something like this. She loves pranks, but she also is quite compulsive. She's like showing off that she has money, so she buys us and herself new things all the time. She does overspend, and well, that's when she calls my dad and emotionally blackmails him into giving her more. That's also the reason why I started a part-time job. Using the money didn't sit right with me. Well, now time for the update. I waged a war with my mom. I know, some of you told me to just let my ego aside and to be the understanding one, but here's the thing. I was willing to do that. For the next few days, the tension in the house was even thicker than when my parents got divorced. My little sister was crying because mom told her she can't have a new iPad. She stomped away and then tried to kick my leg. She told me I should have just chosen to be happy about the surprise, and I gathered that my mother told her it was my fault. Next up was Carl. Carl sat me down and asked me why I told Dad during lunch. I reasoned that I could not possibly lie, and Annie was already talking about it. He just sighed and then asked me about my drive. To be honest, I didn't even think of my laptop ever since lunch with Dad. I told him I haven't called back. Carl seemed disappointed and asked me if it's worth breaking the family over. Well, I was appalled. This was not my fault. Okay, I mean, partly my fault, but I think it was reasonable to get angry even if Mom meant it as a joke. It went too far, and I don't have a responsibility to keep it from Dad, right? He's my father, and I should be able to tell him things. But honestly, even at that point, I was still trying to will myself to just apologize to everyone and convince Dad to just give his usual check. If he wants to reduce it, he can do so after and with a warning. What tipped me over was Mom herself. That weekend, my dad came over to the house to talk with my mom. My mom's been endlessly calling him, and I guess they decided to air everything out in a one-on-one discussion at home. None of us want to bother them, so we just stayed in our own rooms. I got thirsty, so I walked downstairs in the kitchen, and being curious since it is largely, well, involving me, I listened in on the conversation. I kid you not, she was not just blaming me. She put on lies on top of lies on top of lies. She told my father that it was just my teenage phase and I wanted to exaggerate it just to be a bit rebellious. She told him that it was only my clothes thrown and it was just downstairs and in the living room, not even outside. She even tried to cover it up and saying it was a gift surprise, since she wanted a shocking way to reveal that she wants to buy me new clothes. My dad told her that I complained about a broken laptop, but Mom lied once more, telling him it was an accident and she did not notice my laptop was hidden in my clothing. I was shocked. I was already angry, but this was just a straight-up lie and a betrayal. I stepped into the living room and revealed myself. I confronted this sorry excuse of a mother about her lies, but she shifts into this innocent angel again, and after that, I'm not really sure what happened. It was a shouting match that lasted what felt like a few hours. I stopped when I saw Annie and Carl watching us, and I looked at Father and he was expressionless, but I felt ashamed. My mom also realized the same, so she started doing her pity me act again. She dropped to the floor and wailed, and my father raised his voice and told us to stop the fighting. My mom tries to reach out for his sympathy and tells him that this is how I treat her all the time. So naturally, I also told Dad that she's a liar all the time. Dad raised his voice again and told us that he'll leave since he didn't come over here to watch us argue with one another. So yeah, there's that. I've now decided that if Mom is willing to lie about me to save herself, why should I make an effort to be a bigger person? So today, while she was out at the mall with Annie and Carl because I'm not part of her lovable baby crew anymore, I went to her room, grabbed her clothing, and it's time to look up to her mother and reenact her greatest moment as a parent. Tell me, am I petty? Update number 2. Well, hey guys, as expected, my mother went berserk when she saw her clothes on the street. I admit I was laughing when I saw her chase after a dog who seemed to like one of her dresses. She gave up midway as she was on her heels and walked back to the house defeated. She asked Carl and Annie to help her pick up her things and went inside. To complete the event, I popped off the party popper when she opened the door, and let me tell you, she was huffing and puffing like a wolf. She asked me what I've done with her clothes, and I cheerfully greeted her with a April Fool's. She pointed out that it was not April 1st anymore, but I gave a confused look saying that I thought I had it right. Her face reddened and told me I went too far. I just gasped and told her we can just buy more. She opened her mouth to say more but decided not to. I felt her anger, but she tried to compose herself, and when she did, she told me I was grounded. But I don't really care about her at that point. She just said no and left the house. When Carl saw me leave the house, he reprimanded me, saying that I'd already done more than enough. I reminded him what happened last night and how Mom lied through her teeth at my expenses. But he just told me that whatever needs to be done to keep the peace must be done. But my mom just doesn't even feel remorse, so why should I be the one to adjust? Carl pointed out that it's not just my mother and me who are affected, but the rest as well. That my part-time job doesn't pay for my school and we have a good life. He tells me to let it go since I didn't pay for my things. It got me even more riled up. Why is it so hard to find someone in my family to at least side with me? Am I too unreasonable? Was I too petty? Update number 3. 2 weeks. Okay. Well, after 2 weeks, I thought over what I did and I've read some comments. I agree that I made things worse. But also for the other comments supporting me, thank you. I'm glad you at least understand my own frustration. So yeah, as I've mentioned, 2 weeks have gone by and there are a lot of things that I want to update you all with. So in this update, it's my father's time to shine. I've heard my mom argue with him a couple of times over the phone. One weekend night, he gathered me, my mom, and Carl in the living room. He told us that he will increase his monthly checks, but with one condition: that my mom finds a job. We were confused because the initial reason why Dad even reduced the check was because of the April Fool's incident, but then I remembered that Father told me that he had been planning to do so for a long time already, and he was only looking for a reason. My mom asked what's the relevance of her looking for a job. Dad said that he gave up giving a straight story. He also revealed that he knows that she's trying to use the kids just to get more money. All I could think was, wow, Dad really went for it. Mom started to rebut, but Dad did not let her speak. Then Dad dropped the bomb that he will sue her for the kids if she doesn't get her life straight. Mom blackmailed him, suing him herself. Dad then told her that she doesn't have grounds, and I mean, he's right. What'll she even sue him for? Giving more money to her than required? I mean, come on. The room was silent except for the faint sound of Annie's giggling, who was playing in her room. Dad turned to Carl and me and asked for our opinion.
Carl remained on, just wanting to keep the peace, while I said I'm fine with the arrangement. Dad also offered to give me money for my broken and lost stuff, so that's a decent deal. Before dropping the subject, Dad asked us if we all want to live with him, and then Mom immediately refused, saying it was not part of the agreement. And while a little part of me wanted to hurt her a little more, but a bigger part of me just wanted this ordeal to stop. So I told him that school and my workplace are nearby, so it'll just be better for me. Then we proceeded to dinner. The dinner was so awkward, but everything seems to have settled down now at least. I still feel avoided to talk to my mother, except when I really need to. But hey, I guess that is an improvement. Update number 4. Final update. I didn't expect to give you an update again since last time. I thought everything was moving smoothly. As you know, my father told my mom to get a job, and surprisingly, she did go job hunting right after that. She would be gone for the whole day, and I honestly thought she was doing really well. She would talk about the places she would go and her interviews, and her having trouble with some job requirements and relearning a lot of stuff. So, a big kudos go out to her, until all my respect was just wiped out. So, after 3 weeks, she finally found a job that is, quote, fitting for a grand woman like her. I rolled my eyes when she said it, but congratulations, I guess. I didn't ask what she does, and I kind of just assumed she is in fashion boutique or something. Even father was supportive and offered even to send his usual monthly check to us, minus mom's salary. Then I heard her talk to my little sister. Annie was asking her to talk with father, but mom told her that the man she was calling over the phone wasn't dad. So Annie started asking a bunch of questions. Mom just told her it was some work stuff and that she should stop asking. Well, that just raises a lot more questions. One day when she left for work, I followed her. I missed school, but hey, whatever. I think she's hiding something from us, and instead of us taking the bus that'll take her to the city center, she just continued walking. I think it was like 2 kilometers before she stopped, then I saw her hail a taxi, and of course I got it and another one to follow her. And here's the big reveal. She doesn't work. She went to a mall and shopped around. After one boring hour and a couple of stalker photos, I decided to go home. But then I saw a guy who came up to her. They held hands, went to a coffee shop. Okay, so my mother and dad are divorced and she does have the right to date other dudes, but come on, dating someone while living a lie? I decided to follow her and take a seat away from her so she could not see me, but near enough to listen in. Well, the guy teasingly called her a shrewd devil. My mother agreed, saying that she did marry him for the money and not to get reprimanded for not working. I couldn't believe what I was hearing, but at the same time, somehow it's not even unbelievable. The guy asked her how much she gets now, and she confessed that she receives a lower amount since father does deduct her salary from the usual checks. I felt bad for Dad. He was already tolerating her before when he was being emotionally blackmailed, and now this? He gives her a chance for her to keep lying? Thankfully, I got out of the turmoil inside my head and remembered that I should at least get some proof. So I recorded the rest of the conversation, and when she said that she plans on seducing father so she can get even more money, I felt like a cue for me to go. I think Mom saw me or suspected that I was there, at least because she texted me almost right after I left asking if I'm in school. I took a taxi home. And Carl also just arrived after picking Annie up from school. It must have been obvious on my face because he asked, "Did something happen?" I was deciding if I'd tell him because I know his priority is keeping the peace, but she is our mom and I think he should know. Besides, even if he wants me to keep it shut, he can't force me. So I told him what happened, starting with overhearing Annie to watch Annie confirming my story. Then his face got darker when I told him about Mom not even working, and most especially when I played the recording of the conversation.
He asked me what I would do with it, and I told him that he can't stop me from telling Dad. He agreed that this is beyond one small mistake, but if I told Dad, he will sue Mom for child custody. I pointed out that Dad's the one financially supporting us, and Mom's barely a mother and he's more mature than her. Annie tells us that she wants to stay with Mom because Dad hurt her when he left. Carl sighed and told me that we can't do this to Annie, who hasn't even gotten over the divorce yet. But the alternative is to live with a woman who thinks of no one else but herself, not even her own kids. As if timed perfectly, someone happened to open the door, which turns out to be my mom. She noticed that we seemed to be in a serious discussion, so she jokingly asked if somebody threw out some stuff again. I told her that I had something funnier in mind, and, well, I went ahead and played that recording for her. Mom's face all of a sudden just decides to shift. She asked me why I had it, and I was following her why. She walked towards me and started to give excuses like how she was stressed, and it's only for a month more, then she'll be seriously just looking for a job. I didn't believe any of it. I looked at Carl and I knew that he was disappointed as well. Then suddenly, Mom ran to me and grabbed my phone. I tried to grab it back, but she was running around the place trying to delete the recording. It was absolutely maddening, if you ask me. I chased after her, but she's more agile than I am. Carl just sat, worried and confused about what to do, while Annie seemed to be enjoying the chase. Then Mom just did it again. She dropped the phone in the sink and turned the faucet on, and you know what? I'm tired of trying to keep the peace in the family. I left the house and decided to go to my dad's. She shouted all forms of heck after me as I walked away, and some of the neighbors even looked at me, but I guess that was her intention. Whatever. When I arrived at Father's, he looked stressed. I bet Mom talked to him. When he saw me, he immediately asked me to go to the living room to talk, and that's what I did. It feels terrible to be the one to bring disappointing news. Thankfully, even without my phone, he believed me. After this, I lived with Dad. He gives her the minimum child support money now, and has refused to give her any chances. Sometimes my mom would still call him and rant, but he's learned to just drop the call and simply not answer. It even came to a point that she would borrow somebody else's cell phone so Dad would actually pick it up. I tried to visit Mother, but she said I'm excommunicated. What is she, a church? Anyways, I felt bad mostly for Carl and Annie, and I think without Annie, he would have left home already. Dad mentioned that he will ask them if they want to live with him. After a month, Dad told me that Mom moved houses to a much smaller one, and yeah, it's not surprising. If she doesn't work, she has to learn how to live within her means. Shouldn't I have given Mom another chance? Honestly, I don't think she'll ever change. Unless it's absolutely necessary. She'll just find another way to manipulate. My main source of guilt, though, is Carl and Annie, but we'll see if they finally decide to not let their guilt with Mother control them.
Guys, I just have no idea how anybody could ever confuse this with an April Fool's joke. I mean, we're talking about throwing somebody's belongings onto the sidewalk and then just acting weird the entire story. Breaking somebody's laptop, how could that even be considered an April Fool's joke? I do want to hear from you guys, though. What do you think about this entire story? Drop your opinions down below. Let's go ahead and discuss it, guys. If you're new to the channel, do subscribe for daily videos, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.